Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate this guy. He is somebody who is working to build healthier communities, families, and workforces with many different modalities. Some you may not even think of, but he's got it. And he's Douglas Becker. He's back with us. Douglas, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's good to have you here. If somebody were to ask you, Douglas, what do you do in terms of medicine, in terms of healing? What is your title? What would you tell them?
Well, I'm a practitioner of traditional Tibetan medicine. I use the term indigenous medicine a lot because the Tibetans integrated a lot of the indigenous systems that were around at the time. And when you look into like the Andes, for instance, there's a lot of crossover between the Tibetan culture and their culture. They have a word for healer. It's in the Andes, they call it Hamchi. It means healer. And in Tibetan, in the real old indigenous roots of the Tibetan culture is the Bon, and their word for healer is the same that the Tibetans use, and that's Amchi. So it's almost exactly the same, and their concepts are exactly the same, especially this concept of the wind. The concept that there's this ever-present energy that can either be structured and move in the right proportions and directions in different locations in your body. And so, yeah, so that's the main way I kind of form my practice too, is around this idea. The main idea with traditional medicine all over the world really is that we forget that everything's connected and we forget that everything changes. And yep.
I want to definitely talk about the wind and go deep into that.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating, and it also has some parallels to some other things. Before we get into that, for you working with somebody, who would it be? Is it somebody who is just frustrated with traditional medicine? Is it somebody who's searching for deeper answers? Maybe somebody who maybe skimmed along energy healing at some point, but never got deeper into it. Somebody looking for a holistic change. Would that be somebody that would come to you for guidance?
Yeah. Usually they're people that have chronic degenerative diseases, chronic problems that haven't been able to find help otherwise. And also people who are, they're really smart and they've done a lot of study themselves. They don't want to go see a doctor. They don't want to, they really want to figure things out themselves. And somehow in self-diagnosing and self-medicating, they've ended up in a situation where they can't really figure out why they are having an issue still. And so they want more clarity about that. And they find some safety talking to something that's more kind of traditional and ancient. Yeah. So that's kind of who I see a lot. They get results, relatively quickly because of how I work with this concept called the wind, and it's something that a lot of really the really intelligent people that have done a lot of study and done their stuff, you can't find information like this on the phone or I mean online.
Yeah.
You can't find it so easily in books. Even in the study of traditional medicine, they talk about it, but many practitioners, it's in a different cosmology, the ancient indigenous cosmology. So they kind of overlook that, as well as overlooking the root cause of the illnesses, of ignorance and of the connection and the changing nature of things. So yeah, so when I talk to a person, yeah, we focus on what their complaint is, but I also talk to them about different causative effects that are more on the energetic level, energy is kind of like, not like Reiki or this type of thing, but the idea of energy in relationship to emotion, to how they see things, where they are in their life, how they feel about things, what they're going through, how they're responding to their life. And a lot of this work on balancing the wind, through that, I've really noticed how the dysfunction in the way they are working, or with the way people in general are working together, how that really is creating a difficult leap for somebody. Even if they balance their wind, if you balance your wind, you're more adaptable, you're more flexible, and the result is that you're more involved with the community in a way that allows you to feel free to express your creative thing. And so in indigenous cultures, we had ceremonies, we had festivals, we had all these multi intelligences, creative aspects that we're not just dealing with thinking and the literal, which is usually where we're coming from in our culture. We're doing logical and literal expressions. And we have this idea of value sets that are black and white, right? And so we create a society that's very inflexible in a lot of ways. And so one of the work I'm doing with right now is, finding people that have solutions to some of those issues. And one of the places I've ended up in looking at is in the Balinese culture. So this leads into doing kind of an event to I have my friend from Indonesia calling. So it's the person I'm working with. He's calling me right now. It's how to take the skill sets that have been developed for 1,000 years. The Balinese culture has lived in harmony with each other, and they consistently take in whatever's being offered, and they rehash it to see how it works in their culture. Their culture is flexible. It's a living culture, so they can incorporate things without losing their connection to their ancestral wisdom. When that container is healthy, when the container is healthy like that, wellness is just a result, because everyone naturally finds their place to align with their highest expression, completely free. And that allowance allows their energy to inform their body of what needs to happen, their physical body. Most of the time we're working in the West from the physical level, where we're like, okay, you have this chemistry that's off, and we're going to fix that chemistry. Yeah. And we can work that way as well through the traditional medicines as well. We fixing the through like elemental stuff. But on a higher, more effective level, what we're looking at is how to affect the energy, so that the information that is being given to the body to heal itself is clear. And that's what the wind is. The wind is, you could say, also like a medium that the information travels through. It's not just the information, but also the medium. And when that medium is disrupted from stress of different kinds, then our bodies really don't know what to do. And unfortunately, when you get sicker in the West, we get inundated with information that makes us even more stressed. And so you can mask stress with different substances, but you can also reorganize that stress so that it goes back to the right places. And so we use, I use traditional herbal remedies from the Tibetan tradition. But again, this isn't like the most effective way to allow us to have wellness is to be in a collective collective activity, where our identity feels really free and really able to express itself, and we have a certain sense of self knowledge to know how we feel and to know what we need. And Yeah, so that's kind of what we're working on to train people. Actually, our ultimate goal is to train people on how to regenerate these kind of things.
I want to learn more about the wind. And you mentioned a couple of moments ago about different points or energy points in the body. Is it similar to chakras? Because that kind of
Yeah,
sounds what they are.
yeah. The chakra system are the main, you could say, the main centers of the wind.
Okay. And then
So
where
we
does it
have
go from
like,
there?
well, that there's the wind is really subtle. There's qualities of the wind. Okay, so it's light, it's cold in general, it's subtle, it moves, it's rough, it's dry, it's hard. You know, so all of these qualities in our life or in our diet will increase the wind, or in our relationships, will increase the wind. The wind is like also supports everything. So anything that grows or decreases, in terms of, like if we're looking at anabolic activities in the body or catabolic activities in the body, this would be analogous to cold and hot. Their balance, they're always changing, and the balance of those things is dependent on balanced wind. Okay, so you could say the more stressed you get, the more interference there is, and the ability to move between these two polarities becomes more disrupted. Um, the uh, like stress on every level, um, accidents, that can impact your body, can create wind situation, dreams, visions, moving too much, feeling ungrounded, and especially like the fundamental foundation of the wind is your sense of purpose, your alignment with what you're doing in your life. If that's not clear, it's like kind of like rowing upstream. Everything you try to do, it's like a roll of a dice. It's not really supported. You can force the body to do things, right? But in traditional medicine, what we're doing is we're trying to ultimately align the energy of the body to be able to take care of itself. So that's why there's less details in some ways with traditional medicine in terms of reductionist chemistry. The presumption is that the body knows how to deal with itself. For instance, when you talk about the chakras, they relate to different endocrine your endocrine system, different glandular hormonal productions and things like this. So that requires, in order for that to work, you need healthy blood pressure. If it's too low, it's because you're not getting your nutrients because your digestion's not working. So we look at, like, the digestion might not be working because the the power and strength might not be there, but it also might not be working because you're stressed. So when we look at things, we look at it a complete system. Fundamentally, your energy needs to be balanced, so that the information that is being given to the body to heal itself, to balance itself, to integrate and resolve every moment of change in the life, that needs to be balanced. If we just focus, for instance, on fixing the strength of the digestion without doing that, then we're really operating in a similar way like Western medicine. We're just using herbs or natural remedies instead of pharmaceutical drugs.
What I'm
Okay.
hearing, Douglas, from you is the wind is many different components of other things that we work with, maybe the chakra system, a few other things, all under one umbrella. So I don't know if I'm getting that right.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then
It's all included. It's
the
all
other side is
inclusive.
the when we think about our bodies are designed to heal. They're amazing, but it's really about balance. So if something's out of balance, even could be something you're not doing your purpose. So inside, you've got something in you that says, I should be doing this, but no, I'm doing this. So now you're out of balance. You're probably bringing on some stress and anxiety because something's out of whack. And it could be many other things at the same time. But is it that once we get all that stuff in line, once everything is all balanced out, the body can heal itself and you don't have to reach for traditional medicine and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is an ideal way of looking at it, right? Ideally, the body has all the capabilities. If we're getting the right elements through our foods that we eat, if our digestion is strong, if the stress is in the right amount in the right places, because we need a certain amount of stress. It's all needed. The the thing about it is that the fundamental kind of the fundamental way we're living in culture doesn't support any of that really.
Right.
We might, like, if we're really intelligent, we might start being like, okay, my digestion needs to be strong. I need to eat the good food. I need to get good rest and exercise. That's kind of like a general health package for most people that are really intelligent. A lot of times they just focus, if they're not so intelligent, they just focus on their food, their rest, and their exercise, right? They forget about whether the digestion's even working, right? If they're not so smart, they might just do exercise and rest. I mean, play is in there too, for sure. But like, yeah. And then like, and if they're less smart, they're probably just making sure they go to sleep. And if they're less smart, they're not doing any of those things. So above all that, the smartest person that's doing all of that, the main thing that's like that keeps it from, that's all management, right? That's management. The thing that fundamentally anchors in the ability to elevate your elevate your wellness, is that your fundamental ground is completely in alignment with how you feel about what you want to do. That's one of the reasons why, like communication around consent can be so healing for people, physical healing, because they're sensing what you want, what you're feeling, and then learning how to communicate that in a way where you're in integrity with yourself, you're in alignment with yourself. And then on a higher level, your own purpose. Like, if you don't really tune into how you feel about stuff, you might be really good at doing something and doing that for 30 years, but it's not really in total alignment. So you're consistently managing a kind of stress that's there. So on a very kind of practical level, learning how to have self-knowledge to elevate our energy, the more our energy gets into beyond logical and literal and starts to go into multiple intelligences of creative expressions of what we're doing in our life creatively, the more grounded we are actually in how we're embodied in our body and society. And there's definitely frameworks around of how to not be fixated on the past, which is depression, really, not being fixated on the future, which is anxiety, and not being so fixated on the present moment that we're in confusion, but being in a state of flow where we're actually flowing. And that's what a group dynamic that is healthy allows you to do. It allows you to be in a place where you're completely yourself, and you're discovering how to align yourself without mental restrictions based on like a kind of a tunnel vision type of thinking. All of the stuff we produce mostly from thinking in our culture. But it doesn't enliven us and make us more healthy. It makes us ultimately more tired, and we have to sleep more, and we don't have much energy. So in these older cultures, in indigenous cultures, they have all these different ways of engaging different kinds of multiple intelligences: dance, song, like art, all these ways that you can communicate and a feeling that can be felt by someone else. Yeah, communicate a sense, and that creates these other levels of ourself to be able to inform us on how to get aligned, and to inform us in a way where our bodies are getting a clear message on how to heal itself.
I was going to ask you that question, and we have a couple of minutes left because I want to get to the event that you have coming up at the end of the month. But I wanted to know what the culture, it was a cultural question about the Balinese indigenous society, how they're able to nail this, it sounds like. But what you just said, it's the freedom of expression. There are many less boundaries on them in that culture, which makes it easier. They're not bottling things up, less stress. Maybe it's easier to find your purpose in those cultures.
Well, yeah, part of it too is a really big part, and it's actually their most secret and sacred part that's just been kind of given permission to come out of their culture in the last couple of years. And that's in relationship to using time in a smart way. So
Mm.
there's days when the way they look at it's based around the tides. Yeah. So you could say it's also kind of based around the moon. But there's days where we feel low energy, and there's days when we feel high energy. And and there's days when we have high energy, there's days when we're balanced, and there's days when our energy is so high that we can almost will things to happen.
Mm. Mm.
If when our energy is kind of balanced, it's the energy of the day. So this is also coming back to our relationship and sensitivity to nature. We're referencing nature. So when our energy is balanced, we have the capacity to plan for what we're going to do on the days that we have high energy. When we have low energy, we should be in a place of service. We should be actually seeing how we can help others, and that keeps us in a flow of feeling good. The idea is that if you could know when you have a low energy day, you would be able to see whether or not you're being in integrity with that energy of the day. Because what normally happens is there's aspects of ourselves that aren't in touch with how we feel. And so if it's a low energy day, we're going to be pushing, 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 and making not just ourselves, but everyone else feel bad. On a high energy day, when we push, everyone feels better. They're thanking us. Yeah. And then and likewise, if we're on a high energy day and we aren't doing anything because we think we have low energy, then we're also operating out of harmony of that day. And so they've been using a calendar that came out of India. It's at least 10,000 years old, and about 1,000 years ago they started using it to create collective coherence. So coherence with the community, how to support each person when they have a high energy day, how to support them, how to listen to them, how to
Wow.
consider what they're saying. And when someone's at a lower energy day, even if they have the charisma, the skill sets, the academic background, whatever, they know themselves that they should kind of step down. Even if they're a natural born leader, they know that they need to step down. They're not a leader in that point. And the head of the community kind of in general, the head of the community is the one that reinforces and checks everyone to know that we're all equal, not that one person's above another person, but some people have a higher energy level. They can see more and they're clear. So that's really a huge key of how they've been able to create coherence. And coherence is the main problem we're experiencing in the world. We might have great ideas, great resources, but when everyone starts to work together, everyone's clueless. We come from a culture that has not developed the ability to create coherence. And it comes from all these things I've mentioned. But a big part of it in their thing is this cycle of time that they can flow with, when to do the ceremonies, when to stop, when to go, in a way that's consistently empowering and energizing their intelligence, in a way to continue to flow.
What an eye opener to when we say, the cliche, how the other half lives. Well, there you
Mm.
go. Sounds like there's harmony there. We
Yeah.
have a moment or two left. You have an event coming up. January, is it 27th? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. 27th to 29th.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, it's a 3-day event. It's to really share some simple tools from the Taoist tradition, Tibetan tradition, and Balinese tradition. We're not trying to regenerate Balinese culture everywhere, but we're trying to regenerate the principles that allows it to thrive. And so we're going to go through that. We're not going to give as much as we know. We're going to give as much as we feel people can receive during that time. So there'll probably really be about 50% of data and 50% of connection and creating a community so that we can continue to share this. We'll be offering a year-long program for coaches and mentors, biohackers, digital nomads, that really want to be able to take their talent and skill sets and get it to more people. The idea of being welcome in any community or any culture because of the skill set of integration that you can utilize, is huge. And how to build leaders to do that is really, really what we're doing. I have a nonprofit. It's called Phalamritam Institute that's always been dedicated to promote indigenous wellness, and educate people in that in whatever way. And my president now, he has a NGO in Southeast Asia who's dedicated to kind of wellness more of on a community level through the indigenous. Wow. And so he's given presentations to UNICEF, United Nations, APEC, on encouraging them to understand regenerative culture. He primarily works with children with social emotional dynamic education. And he's been able to take, in one project, he had 23 students from 20 countries, and they spent 4 days in his program that he calls Celebration, and they were able to return to their countries after only 4 days and start their own corporations that included everyone in their community, inspired everyone to participate and create an ecological, sustainable business.
It's amazing. So, we have the power. We need the guidance, and you offer that in many different ways, including the wind. Website for the event.
Website is naturalbornhealer.online. Naturalbornhealer.online.
And somebody goes there and they can sign up that way.
They can sign up that way. Yeah.
Wow. I appreciate all the insight. Interesting. And again, it's like how other people live in our world, and it's not that hard. It's what it sounds like. It's being mindful. Douglas, thank you so much for being with us, and looking forward next time we get together to learn more.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, I look forward to it too. Take care.
Thank you. You too. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.